if I could persuade you to believe what tonight I hope I will try to, your entire world would change. You hear the word God, the word Jehovah, the word Lord, the word Jesus, the word Christ, and you think of something other than yourself, one that is greater, one that you would worship. Tonight it is my purpose to show you that God and the eye of man are one. When you say, I am, that is the God of Scripture. Confined as you are, you think, how could it be? God created the universe and sustains it. And here I am, like a little worm, 10 years, and then I vanish. But now let us turn to Scripture. We turn now to the 16th chapter of Matthew. And the question is asked of the disciples, the followers, those who have heard him. And he said to them, who do men say that the Son of Man is? And they reply, well, some say John the Baptist, come again. Others, Elijah. Others, Jeremiah, or one of the prophets. And then he said to them, but who do you say that I am? And the spokesman, called Peter, answered and said, thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. And he said to him, blessed art thou, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood could not have told you this, but my Father who is in heaven. So here he equates the Son of Man with the eye of man, not the organ that sees or through which you see, but your sense of awareness, that I amness, when you are aware of being, your consciousness, your human imagination. So he equates the two. The Son of Man spoken of in the Old Testament and brought forward into the New is nothing more than the eye of man. And he calls it the Christ, and defines Christ as the Son, of God. Now we find Christ being defined in the New Testament as the power of God and the wisdom of God. So the eye of man is the power of God and the wisdom of God. If man does not know it, well, then he will not exercise that power. He will not exercise that wisdom. So tonight I am trying to persuade you that when you say I, before you say anything, that is the power and the wisdom of God. And you can't separate the power of God and the wisdom of God from God. So you will say in the end, I and my Father are one, for he is called the Son of God. Now we are called upon to test this, if it be true. Can we test it? I hope you'll put it to the test. When I tell you that your own wonderful I amness is God, though prior to that you believe that you are little something, moving across the earth for a few years, 70 years, and then you will vanish, in the hope of some restoration, but a hope, no assurance. But now I'm going to tell you that you really are God. Your own wonderful consciousness, your human imagination, that is the God of Scripture. And there is no other God. Imprisoned as you are in these bodies of flesh, You did it for a purpose. Now let us see what it tells us about this Son of Man that is now equated with the I of man. No one has ever ascended into heaven but he who descended from heaven, the Son of Man. You'll read that in the 3rd chapter, the 13th verse of John. So here we find you are a pre-existent being. No one can ascend into heaven but he who descended from heaven, the Son of Man. Your ascension in the next verse, the 14th verse, is showing you how you ascend. As Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, so must the Son of Man be lifted up. That's all imagery, and yet it is true. You descended into generation in a world of death where everything begins, it waxes, it wanes, and then it disappears. But there's something in you, clothed in this garment, that does die, that is pre-existent, and its home is heaven, which is harmony. You gave it up completely. You aren't pretending that you're a man. You descended into man. You became man, with all the weaknesses, all the limitations, all the restrictions of man, to experience this world of death and decay. There will come a moment in time that you will ascend from this restriction, taking with you the experience that is yours because of this restriction. And you will ascend in the same manner that Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness. That was an adumbration. That was a foreshadowing. You will rise from the base of your spine, up your spine into your own skull, for heaven is within you. And you will rise like a fiery serpent, without any loss of identity. The form you wear, I hesitate to describe it. I will tell you that your face is human, your hands are human, your voice is human, but do not ask me to describe the body that you wear. It's infinite power, infinite wisdom, and yet it is a form. You are that fiery being that descended, not because of anything that was wrong when you descended. The fall is not because of any mistake on our part. It's a predetermined plan to come down into the world of death and decay and overcome it. If coming down, wearing these garments, we knew who we were, pretending that we were men, we could not accomplish it. Any more than an actor on the stage, pretending that he is Hamlet, can actually play that part. He has to actually assume it, but even then it is still with a little something in his mind. He knows he is the great actor who tonight will go home to his lovely home, and he'll take off the garment and hang it up once more, and tomorrow he'll replay the play. You don't do that in this play of God. You don't take off the garment. You wear it for your 70, and if by strength, your 80, or maybe even longer, or shorter. But the I of man is the God of Scripture. Put it to the test. Let me now, first of all, before we go into the testing of it, make clear what I said on the last lecture night, Friday night, prompted by a question that was asked here. For I had said in the previous lecture that there are ranks in heaven as they are on earth, for this is only a copy. Everything here is a shadow. It's a copy of the eternal realities. And in the 12th chapter of 1 Corinthians, Paul describes the 10, or the 8 ranks. He does it many times, but he never changes the first 2. The first is always the apostles. The second, the prophets. The third, the teachers, and then he goes on. Miracle workers, healers, helpers, administrators, and the speakers in tongues. But he never changes the first and second, the apostle and the prophet. You might think, because I told you I am sent, and the word sent means an apostle, that I am appropriating unto myself a certain first rank. But now, to put your heart at peace, I'm going to quote the 11th chapter of Romans. As of old, for there are always a remnant of old, and the remnant simply means the elect of God. You're not elected because you're born by accident into some ethnic group. Has nothing to do with that. A descendant of Abraham after the flesh is not necessarily the elect of God. You are chosen from any race, any nation, any religion. Well, how the choice is made, no one knows. It remains the Father's secret. But Paul qualifies it in this manner. There is a remnant to this day, called by grace. And if by grace, then it is not on the basis of works. Otherwise, grace would no longer be grace. Therefore, no one who is called and sent can brag. If he brags, he is not the sent. Because it's all by grace. He didn't earn it. It's not by merit. It is simply a secret known only to the Father. So when we are called, incorporated into the body of infinite love, who is God, and then sent, let no one who is sent raise a finger to brag, to boast, for it is all by grace. Read it in the 11th chapter, the 5th and 6th verses of Paul's letter to the Romans. So now I have stated that. So do not think for one moment when I tell you I have been called and sent that in any way I am trying to act superior. For there is no intrinsic superiority to those who are called. Now, he uses an analogy, which I do not think adequate, but you can read it in the book itself. He uses the analogy of the human form, that not all are heads, eyes, nose, teeth, and so on. But that is a weak analogy. Nevertheless, he uses that to show you the different parts in one body. But now to come back to make this a very practical night. Believe me that when you say I, before you say I am John, I am Bill, I am this, I am that, I am the other, you are declaring yourself to be. And that sense of being is God. That's God. Now what are you going to put on it? All things are possible to God. All things. You could say now, as you're seated here, after first affirming that I am, you could then assume that I am, and you name exactly what you want to be. If you believe what I tell you about your own I amness, and remain faithful to what you have assumed, that assumption will harden into fact. When you pray in the true sense of the word, you do not pray to any external God. That was my command when I was sent down with the blue bloods. Has nothing to do with the social structure of the world. It has only to do with church protocol, all external worship, all ceremonies, everything that leads the individual outside of himself. To put a little cross on the wall, or the Morgan David, and then bow before it and see it as something external, is not what Scripture teaches. Buried in the Old Testament there is a pattern. So he said, taking the 12, we're going up to Jerusalem. And everything written about the Son of Man, which is the I of man, will be accomplished. But they did not understand what he said. It was beyond their ability to grasp. He is going up, and only the one who has experienced Scripture, which means he has actually resurrected the pattern, playing the part that is the central part of Scripture. He resurrects the pattern, all within himself. He plays all the parts. He is the one who is born from above. He is the one who comes out of the grave, unassisted. He is the one whose 3 witnesses bear witness to his birth from above. He is the one they cannot see because he is now spirit, yet more real than all the flesh in the world. He is the one who actually sees his son, David, and David calls him father, and he knows he is David's father, and David knows that he is his son. He is the one whose temple, the body, is split in 2 from top to bottom. It is he now who ascends like a fiery serpent from the base of the spine up into the skull. He is the one on whom the dove descends and lights upon his hand like Noah in the ark. And as Noah brought the dove into him, you bring the dove to you, for man is the ark of God. And as the ark contains all things within itself, pardon me, man contains within himself all things. Everything he creates from within himself. And this pattern, the individual awakens within himself. And who does it? The I of man. And that is God. Now tonight you can test it, as you're called upon to test it. Test yourselves and see. Do you not realize that Jesus Christ is in you? Unless, of course, you fail to meet the test. Examine yourselves to see whether you are holding to the faith. What faith? To have someone tell me that I am a Christian, or I'm a Jew, or a Mohammedan, and holding to that faith that they talk about? No. The faith that I'm talking about tonight, that your own wonderful I amness is God. Test it to see if you're holding to that faith. If you're holding to that faith and all things are possible to God, you should be able to prove it in the testing. She's not here tonight. She promised she would write me a letter, having told me the story on Friday. But I know she finds it difficult to express herself in writing. She can paint and paint and paint and do all kinds of lovely things in painting and drawing. And when I say to her, please write it that I may tell it to my audience before I close, for I have no future plans after I close on the 29th. So I would like to share your experience with them, to encourage everyone in this world to do what you did. Well, the letter didn't come. I can see her struggling over one page and rubbing out a line because she didn't spell the word correctly, and going over the next one. But she can take a piece of canvas, a piece of paper, and do miracles with it. But because she's restricted in writing a letter, she didn't send the letter. But the essence is this. She is now a divorced girl with a little boy, handsome little fellow. Well, when you're living alone and you need money and you have a child to support and you have a home, all the things, and the money isn't coming in, then you're up against it. So she said, I blew my top, as you're told in the Psalms to do. Pardon me. She said, then I applied this principle, and I assumed that I had exactly what I need plus and plus. And then I got a call from First National City Bank of New York City. Now that is the second largest bank in our country. Bank of America comes first, they're second, and Chase Manhattan is third. Given me an order. She has no agent. This is an unsolicited statement. An order for $5,000, which she can execute and deliver within a month. Well, the First National City Bank of New York is not going to be hard-pressed to pay her immediately $5,000. If she called them and told them to pay it in advance, they would willingly pay it in advance. And she said, I can execute that order in 1 month. But I want the details. I had hoped she would send me as she promised last Friday, but knowing her restriction concerning the use of words. She can use the brush and use the pen and use the pencil, but she's limited in the use of words. Eventually, she will send it, but I had hoped to have it by tonight. So I could give you exactly what she did. But this is what I do. Having convinced myself through experience, I have come to the conclusion that because I am aware that I am, that is God. For if by him all things are made, and without him is not anything made that is made, and I start from scratch, only imagining a state, and then I boldly assume that it is real, that I am actually experiencing that state now, and then in the not distant future, that state crystallizes in my world. Well, then I have found God. I have found the source of the phenomena of life. My only concern then is to share it with others and tell them, for they're all one. We are one. No one is greater than the other, not fundamentally. In his claims of what he is in the world of Caesar, he has more money, or he has so-and-so and so-and-so, but basically the same creative power in the man tonight behind bars serving life is the same creative power of the one who sentenced him to life. It's the same being. There is only one God. Hear, O Israel, the Lord, our God, the Lord is one. And the word translated, the Lord, is Yod He Vav He. Properly translated is I am. When you go unto the people of Israel and they ask you, what is his name? And you claim that the God of Abraham and the God of Jacob and the God of Isaac sent you. You say unto them, I am has sent me. That's my name forever. And by this name I shall be known throughout all generations. But man finds it difficult keeping the tense. And so he speaks of thou art, or he is. And he never actually comes down to the fundamentals and knows that I am. I am the cause of the phenomena of my life, good, bad, or indifferent. I have to live with it and change my assumptions if I would change the world in which I live. But now, can I help a seeming other? I say you are myself pushed out. Can I help another? Yes, because there's only one. If your request of me comes within the framework of the golden rule, something that I would like done to me, then I can willingly help you. If you ask of me that which does not come within the frame of the golden rule, do not ask it of me. I grant you complete freedom to go elsewhere and go to anyone who will tell you they can do it in spite of what he said. Go ahead. But if anyone asks of me any request, all that I do is this. It's so simple. We are told in Scripture, whatever we ask of him, knowing that he hears it, it shall be done for us. If we know he hears it. Well, can you imagine you seated here on the surface of your being, a rational being, knowing something that the depth of your own being that encompasses you doesn't know? So you know, and you think, well, he doesn't know. Well, read that in the story of Ezekiel. You'll read it in the 38th chapter. And these are the elders of Israel that went into the dark room. And they are carving on the walls all gruesome things. And they said within themselves, the Lord does not see us. And the Lord is speaking to his prophet Ezekiel. And he said, the elders of Israel say that I do not see them. And watch what they're doing, making all these abominable things within the great cavern. They will all reap them, because I see everything that the elders of Israel see. But they think because it's dark and it's a cavern, no one knows what he is doing. That God doesn't know it. I have said time and again, there is no fiction in this world. You might have heard the story, and you read the story, concerning the seajacking of the Queen Elizabeth. You might have read the article in Time that some girl at Hunter College wrote that story in detail. And she was so shy, when it came to the point to be read, she could not read it. She's a shy, sweet lady with a gift of writing. She wrote that in detail, including those who seemingly participated, a terminal case in cancer, and one who is running away from the law, who has not a thing to gain, and therefore is quite willing to blow the Queen Elizabeth with 2,200 souls aboard. And everything is completely in detail in her fictional story. If imagining creates reality, there is no fiction. So someone expressed her thought. and called the captain while at sea and demanded $1 million and would settle for $350,000. Well, it must have cost them, I should say, more than $1 million to stop that huge hulk in mid-Atlantic and then feed 2,200 people 4 times a day for the extra meals that they would have coming to them. Plus all the things that you put it all together, it would cost more than $1 million. And a little girl, possibly writing this for her PhD, or writing it for some reason, and she writes it in detail. They gave her name so you can contact her. They gave the school is Hunter College in New York City. And everything in detail, pardon me, is told in that story. So I tell you, you sit down and write fiction. Need not put it down. My friend wrote fiction. She had a large sum of money coming in. And she went to town within herself, and she wrote in herself, and blew her top, as it were. Thank you, Harry. Thank you. Didn't drink enough tonight. So she, in the depth of her own being, conjured the sum of money that she needed. Beyond, always go beyond. So we are told in the psalm, be angry, but sin not. Commune with your own heart upon your bed, and be silent. Yes, blow your top, but do not let the sun go down upon your anger. Be silent as you commune with self. You don't commune with another, for the self of man is God. So be